Hey guys, how's it going today? We got a cool one. We have a Mustang. It's an older Mustang with a mock stereo in it. Now, we get tons of questions through the shop, not necessarily here, about these cars. Let me show you what this car has it, so if you have a Mustang and your car has similar stuff, you're gonna love this. So obviously this is a little older Mustang. It's got these cool sail fin speakers here. It's got this lower guy here. These are the subwoofers. This is a convertible, so whether you have the hard top or the convertible, the rear speakers are gonna be in different locations. You have a hard top, they're gonna be here, obviously. You have a convertible, they're gonna be here. In the convertible, you have a top speaker here and a 6.5 down here. These are 5x7s, by the way. And the top 4 speakers, so this guy, that guy, that guy, that guy, those are all playing full range. Those are full range drivers. These are where all the sound comes from. And then these lower ones here, 6.5s in the back, or if you have the sedan, there's going to be 2 drivers here, and then the 5x7-inch woofers, you're going to have the 2 silver amplifiers. In the convertible, they're actually buried underneath this top. They get wet all the time and go bad. The 5x7s, or in this case the 6.5s, are the subwoofers. They're where all the bass comes from, and it's on a mono channel, meaning there's no balance and fader for those subwoofers. The factory radio has no way to control the subwoofers. Aftermarket wise, we do, because we're going to go with this harness here, 5800R. See this little guy right here? We'll show you once we get that out of the package. It has a subwoofer control, so if you buy a radio that has a subwoofer volume control, you can control the level of the subwoofer. Actually makes things really nice. Plus, active crossover, you can cross over those little speakers, make them sound a whole lot better. If you are going to replace the speakers, that's where it gets confusing, because you can't just pull out this 5x7, put a new 5x7 in its place. It's a subwoofer. It'll play sub bass and it'll sound terrible. So when you go to put in that aftermarket speaker, this guy here is what you want to come off of. Don't use the wiring that goes there. Those are the subwoofers. These are actually powered off of the radio, so when you go to replace it, you know, you can put like a tweeter here and a mid-range down here and use these wires here. Don't use those wires for anything. And the same is true for the back. If you're replacing all the speakers and you have that sedan version, you'll see that giant plastic thing screwed to the dash. Take that whole thing out. Get rid of it. You don't need it for anything. Use the wiring for the 2 small speakers. Those will power the 2 new 5x7 coaxials you're going to put in the rear deck. When we do one, we'll talk more about it. This guy here, all we're doing is replacing the radio today, so we're going to talk about replacing the radio. Anytime you're integrating into that factory amplifier, the factory amplifiers in these Fords have a 5-volt trigger, so what you're going to need is one of these guys here. This is a volt 3.9. This has a 5-volt output, so it'll take that 12-volt remote turn-on output and convert it over to 5 volts. There's cheaper ways to do it. You could get something like this guy right here. This is the VR5. These are variable resistors. That's what most people have used up to this point, some form of a resistor to knock that voltage down and make it not pop when you turn it on. Since these guys have come out, they're a little bit more money, but they work every time. I don't have to go into the car after the fact and vary the resistance. Even though some of these kits, actually some of these come with resistors in them, most of the time they don't work for whatever reason. Sometimes because the car is older. I don't know, I just never have any luck with them. This works a lot better. What we're gonna do, get the radio out of the dash. Now the first thing we want to do is remove the panel around the gear shifter here. This little guy right here, it's got some clips. You don't even need a panel tool. You just kind of get in there with your fingers. Go ahead and move this out of the way. Now this guy's also going to unsnap. Okay, so here's where the fun part comes in. Up here by the air conditioning controls. For some reason, this area here always likes these vents. They like to break off. This is where you're going to want to go slow. Take your time. Panel tool, very helpful. Now, breaking off and popping off are 2 totally different things. There's actually teeth that hold them in place. So sometimes they'll just pop off, which is fine because you can just snap them back on. You just don't want them to break. There we go. Go ahead and unplug these 3 little plugs right here. Kind of give it a pull. There is some slack and they will come a little loose. Now what we want to do is grab a 7mm. There's going to be 2 plugs and an antenna on it. Go ahead and just unplug them. This has a standard antenna. And that's pretty much it. Now we have the big gray harness here, and we have this little guy right here. This is the subwoofer harness here. Most of these are going to have 8 wires in them, depending on what Ford you're doing. This case, because it has 2 amplifiers, it's got all 8 wires in it, so we're definitely going to hook up all 8 wires on the aftermarket harness. He has no steering wheel controls, so we don't have to worry about that. Let's over to the bench. As we said, we're going to use the BHA 5800R harness, and in it we have a standard Ford harness here, and then we have the subwoofer harness here. This is the Volt 3.9. line that we just mentioned, this is going to attach to this harness here. Now on this harness, you'll see these two guys right here. This is an amp turn on and a power antenna turn on. More than likely, these aren't going to be in your car. Always check first. Don't worry about hooking them up. Take this into the car now that the radio's out, plug them in, see if they're there, just like this. And they're not there. Now you can either remove them, cap them off, tape them into the harness, do whatever you want. If you were gonna do a car that had steering wheel controls, the steering wheel controls are in this harness, so you could actually pull these out and repin them where the steering wheel control goes. Something to think about, or just save them, you know. Now with the Volt 3.9, the reason why it's called Volt 3.9 is because it does a bunch of different voltages, 3.3, 5, 6, and a 9 volt output. What we want to do is put it on 5 volt, so just flip the little switch here, there we go. Now it's got a couple wires on it. Basically it's got a trigger, an accessory input, a ground, and an output. So what we're going to do here is we have the blue wire is going to be the remote trigger from the radio, red and black, accessory, ground, and then white red is going to connect to these two guys right here, just like this. On our harness, we have all the standard colors. We have the white pair, the green pair, the purple pair, the gray pair. Those are all our speaker wires for the car. Then we have our constant 12 volts, yellow, black ground, red accessory, and the orange-white is illumination. Let's go ahead and pull the harness out from the radio here. It's a Pioneer we're putting in this. This is an FHS 500 BT. So on our Pioneer harness, it has all 8 of the same speaker wires. It has a yellow, black, red, and the blue remote turn on. What it is missing is the orange-white. There's no illumination control on this. On this particular radio, the illumination is controlled via a clock. So we'll go ahead and to start out, we'll cap off our orange-white wire. Now what we want to do is we're going to go ahead and solder all this together. We're going to solder this red wire to this red wire. We're going to solder this black wire in with this black wire. So essentially what we're going to do is we have 3 red wires and 3 black wires soldered together. And we're going to solder these guys onto here. And then we'll tap in our blue wire is going to go to our Pioneer's blue-white wire. And this red-white wire is going to go to these 2 blue-white wires that are coming off of this plug here. Hopefully that makes some sense. All right, let's get to soldering, shall we? All right, so the harness is all set. We're gonna let that cool down for a minute and then we'll tape it all up. Let's take a look at the dash kit. For this, we're using a BK FMK 554 by Best Kits. Now in this kit, there's actually the main trim bezel here. There's 2 side brackets, a back bracket that never gets used, a bag of screws, and then these 2 little spacers here. Don't lose these, these are important. Radio basically slides over just like that, but before we do that, what we want to do is go ahead and snap in these 2 brackets here. They are universal, so it doesn't matter which side is which. Now, these are 2 different sizes. I mean, there's a big hole here and there's a small hole here. So these actually have 2 different sizes too, big hole, small holes. And they have little tabs on them, little risers, so they're going to snap into place. Now I will tell you they don't actually snap and hold, so you're either going to want to put a little bit of glue on here or a little bit of double-sided tape, thin, really thin tape, just to hold these in place. And you don't have to go crazy with the glue, you just need a little bit on there just to hold it. So the radio's done. We're just going to go back here and tape up the harness. Alright, our harness is all set and ready to go. Went ahead and taped over that little dip switch on the Volt 3.9 so that it doesn't get bumped or anything when you're stuffing this back into the dash. Alright, let's go ahead and get this into the car. Alright, so now we can go ahead and plug our harness back in. We're going to go ahead and plug it into the radio. Make sure you plug this into the subwoofer outputs of the radio. Alright, now this is like an oval shaped screw down right here. So what you want to do is you don't want to go ahead and hammer them down really tight, just kind of loose. See how this is still moving here? Because what we're going to do is once we get the kit back in, we may have to lower it or raise it. So for right now, we're just going to loosely put them in place. We're going to go ahead and turn on the radio and make sure everything works before we snap that on though. Alright, so the radio works. Make sure you go up and set up your high pass crossover for these top little speakers, and your subwoofer, make sure you turn it on. If you're using this particular radio, the subwoofer comes default off, so you have to go into the menu and turn it on. Some Pioneer radios do that, a lot of the NEX. Most other manufacturers just come default on. All right, now let's go ahead and get this center dash piece back in place. We just kind of want to loosely set it in, make sure it's the right height. It is. Go ahead and tighten those 2 screws back down. All right, we can snap this into place. So we have our nice new shiny radio in the dash. All right, so if you have one of these older style Mustangs with this Mach stereo in it and you want to replace yours, now you know how. Thanks for watching as always. You guys have a great night and we'll see you later.
Bye.
Bye.